Now? Yeah.
Hello, hello. Alrighty. I'd like to talk about hearing, why it's very important, what are the different types of hearing losses, and why we need to take care of our hearing today. Could I get a show of hands? How many people have had their hearing tested before? Amazing. How many of you have had your hearing tested in the last 12 months? Very nice. Yeah. One of the important things that we have to do is to continually monitor our hearing. Just like our eyesight, we want to make sure that our hearing's not dropping. We want to make sure that if there's any changes, we're keeping on top of it all. It may be surprising to know that 1 in 2 adults over 60 have some sort of hearing loss. So our hearing starts to drop even in our 20s and 30s, and it slowly drops over time. What we miss is not the volume in speech, but it's mainly the sharpness and the clarity. So people come in every day, and the concerns that they have is that they can hear, but it's not as clear as it used to be. Especially if there's a lot of background noise, like here, lots of people talking all at once. It can be quite hard to hear and understand. What a lot of people notice is that, even myself, what I notice is that I have to concentrate a lot, have to strain, have to strain a lot to hear in restaurants, cafes, even after church. I notice for myself, if there's morning tea, you're having a lot of different people running around, eating food, having conversations, it can be very hard to hear and follow along. Background noise doesn't only mean a cafe or outside, but a lot of people also notice at home, if there's a lot of noise, let's say the kettle's on, the TV's on, they're trying to have a conversation from the other side of the house. Those kind of conversations get a lot harder. Something that we just experienced then is there was quite a lot of people talking. You're trying to have a whisper next to the person you're talking to, and trying to follow along can be quite hard. So yeah, any accents, any soft-spoken children or women, that can be quite hard, and especially, even the TV, sometimes you need subtitles to be able to follow along quite well. So, just to give you an idea of how the ear works, the ear is made up of a few different parts. You've got the outside. Please try not to use any cotton buds. That's not very good. On the outside, you've also got the eardrum. The eardrum blocks anything from going in further. So that's a very important part. The eardrum vibrates and sends the signals to the bones, and those bones transmit the sound up to the brain. So there are generally 3 types of common hearing losses. You've got either a blockage. So sometimes you can have wax. The wax is stuck in the outside of the ear. Or sometimes, when you go up the plane, if there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of pressure change, it can get quite painful. Sometimes that pressure, when you have a cold or a flu, you got a blocked nose. The blocked nose can also cause a blockage in the ear. So that's one of the most common reasons for a hearing problem. Or sometimes something stuck in there as well. The second most common cause of a hearing loss is nerve deafness. So especially 2 things cause nerve deafness. The first thing is noise exposure. So if you've been working in a factory, if you've been exposed to loud noises, that can often cause a hearing loss. And the second thing is just wear and tear, like our eyes, like our ears, everything else slowly drops over time. And we start to lose the clarity in speech. The third most common cause of a hearing loss, and something that we've been seeing quite commonly nowadays, is a sudden loss. The sudden loss can be either caused by a blockage, so sometimes you have a cold, a flu, your hearing drops quite quickly. Please see your GP or an audiologist as soon as possible, because sometimes that can be more permanent, and we need to get on top of that as soon as possible so that there's no further deterioration. One of the reasons why it's really important for us to look after our hearing is important not only to hear and listen to conversations, but it's also really important for your brain and hearing health. So more and more research is showing that untreated hearing loss at any level leads to increased risk of dementia, cognitive decline, and Alzheimer's. Few reasons for that is, number one, we're not getting adequate stimulation to the brain, so our ears and our brain is not talking very well anymore. Second reason is, often when you have hearing troubles in background noise and groups, something that I noticed for myself, I've had a hearing loss since birth, is that I used to withdraw from conversations. So whenever people go out in groups, parties, that kind of things, even at church, if you're in the back of the sanctuary and you're trying to have a conversation with the other person, even at greeting time, sometimes it can be so hard that most people avoid going to restaurants or going out anymore. So the social isolation of not having conversations, not meeting with people, can exacerbate cognitive and memory decline as well. So that's one of the really important reasons why we need to look after our hearing. And more research is also showing that it leads to much higher risk of falls. Hearing gives us a lot of awareness of what's happening around us. Situational awareness, you can hear when people are coming around. If you walk, you can hear your footsteps. So you know if you've bumped into something. If you don't have that awareness, it can lead to a much higher risk of falls. So it's very important to look after that. And the other thing is, we also don't want to lose the clarity in speech, because if you don't use it, you start to lose it. So that's really important. It looks like a lot of us have had a hearing test before. That's really good. That's really important. I'd like to go through how to read a hearing test and what to look out for as well. Before I do that, did anyone have any questions in terms of hearing or any of the risks? Yeah. All right. Okay, so when you go in to see an audiologist, they will do a quick test. What they'll do is you'll get a small button, and whenever you hear a beep, you'll press the button, and we will try and find what is the softest sound you can hear. So we'll make things louder and louder and louder until you can hear it, and then when you can hear it, we'll try and make it as soft as possible to figure out where you can hear. So normally, if you have very good hearing, we want to see a nice flat line across zero. That means that you can hear well at low frequencies, at high frequencies, and hear all the sounds. But over time, what happens with noise exposure, with all of that, is the hearing starts to drop. It's mainly not the volume that's dropping, but it's mainly the clarity. So a lot of the time, what you're missing is all those high frequency sounds, all the S's and all the T's, all the sh, where things just aren't as crisp as they used to be. So this makes it a lot harder, especially if there's lots of noise, because those sounds get masked very, very quickly. But yeah, typically what happens is we start to lose more of the clarity, and it requires a lot more volume to be able to hear. One of the reasons why so on the right-hand side, this is the speech test that we normally do. So on the bottom, you've got the volume, and on the y-axis, you've got the how clear it is. One of the major concerns is that if we leave it too long, a lot of the time, no matter how loud we make it, it's not very clear. So we, first of all, want to do a regular hearing test every 12 months. For pensioners, you get free tests. And if you go to your GP, you can get some subsidy off tests as well. And yeah, if there is a detected hearing loss, you definitely want to be speaking with your audiologist to make sure that we're looking at what options there are in terms of hearing aids, in terms of treatment, in terms of any medical procedure that you need to do. All right. So yeah, in terms of hearing aids, there are quite a few different types of hearing aids, all the way from something very small on that side, all the way to something very big on this side. The larger the hearing aid generally, the more reliable and robust it is. So they last very long, you don't have to clean them, you don't have to adjust them. A lot of the time, the small ones have to go in for repair all the time. So when you go in to see your audiologist, you definitely want to talk about the different options, because even though something like this is invisible, you may be back to the audiologist every other week to be able to get it serviced. A lot of the small ones still use batteries, so every 3 to 4 days you've got to open the battery, put a new one in. So that's some considerations that you have to make. A lot of the newer ones are now rechargeable. So at night, just like your phone, you can put them inside the charger and then you take them out in the morning. So that's some of the considerations. With the hearing aids, why it's quite important to wear it full time is, number one, a lot of young people don't understand why most people don't like loud sounds. And if the music's too loud or there's too much noise, we both can't hear as well as can't tolerate if it's too loud. So when it's very soft, you can't really hear very well. And if it's too loud, it's painfully loud. One of the reasons is, like an injury, let's say you've fallen down, you've broken your leg. If you don't do any physio, you don't do any chiro, you don't do any massage, and you just sit inside the couch for 6 months, even if you do all that physio, all that adjustment 6 months later, you won't be able to run as fast, walk as fast, because the muscles and the nerves have atrophied. So similar with hearing loss, if we leave it too long, all of the nerves and all of the connection between the ear and the brain start to deteriorate, and you get more sensitive to sounds and you can't hear as soft as before. So that's one of the important reasons. Another thing is that if you wear it all the time, your brain gets used to all these loud sounds. So analogy that I like to make is, imagine you wear sunglasses all the time, inside, outside, everywhere, and the only time you want to see clearly is at the beach, when it's very bright. If you only take out the sunglasses to see clearly at the beach, everything's going to be too bright and too sharp. A lot of people come in and they say, Mark, I'm at home by myself, I don't really talk to many people, maybe I read the paper, maybe I go look at things. I'm not talking to people most of the time. Why do I have to wear hearing aids if I need them all the time? If we only wear them in noisy places, everything's going to be too sharp. It's going to be too bright. Everything's going to be too noisy. But if we can get used to it when it's quiet, then the brain gets more used to it over time. So that's quite important as well. Something important, and this goes back to the falls risk, is that the better your hearing is, the better idea of what's going on around you you have. So if you're walking down the street, there's a car going by or a cyclist, sometimes it's hard to figure out where they're coming from. If we are able to recover that hearing, you have a better sense of your environment, better safety. And yeah, we also want to preserve your brain and hearing health. So we want to keep that stimulation going. We want to make sure that everything's working well. Yeah. That's my presentation today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd love to go through any questions you may have in terms of hearing or hearing aids or brain health. If any of you have questions, feel free to raise your hand and I can bring the microphone around.
Is it true that with hearing loss, it accelerates dementia?
Yes, more and more research. The question was, is it true that untreated hearing loss accelerates dementia? More and more research has shown that one of the leading things that we can do to be able to reduce cognitive decline is treating hearing loss, that's for sure.
Like does it help with the hearing aids if you have hearing loss by nerves?
Yes, so the question was, does hearing aids help with the nerve deafness? So if we get onto it early enough and the nerves haven't deteriorated past the point, a lot of the time we can help with nerve deafness with hearing aids, yeah, to make things louder as well as clearer at the same time. Yeah. Yes.
Two questions. One is, how long is the comprehensive hearing test, not the 15-minute one? And the second question is, when does one need a cochlear implant?
So, great questions. The first is, how long is a comprehensive test? In the industry, there's two types of tests generally. So there's a lot of bigger companies now doing quick screenings. So you walk into the shopping centers and there's a lot of quick screenings. There's an iPad that you can do. Generally with a full test, if we're testing your whole ear, your nerves, the pressure in your ear, generally we spend about half an hour to 45 minutes. And that gives us enough time to look at the options as well. And the second question was, when do we need a cochlear implant? So there's two things that we look at when we look at cochlear implants. The first thing we look at is your hearing level. So how loud do we have to make it before you can hear? If your hearing has gotten all the way to the bottom, and no matter how loud we make it, you aren't understanding or you can't hear, we may need to put a cochlear implant in. So the cochlear implant bypasses the normal hearing system, going straight to the nerve to make sure that we can give you more volume and more clarity. It does take some time to get used to, even with hearing aids, when we fit hearing aids, we can't give you full volume because everything's going to be too loud, and we can't give you what you're used to. But one of the things we need to do is start halfway and slowly make things louder and louder in 6 to 12 to 18 months. So regardless of where the hearing is, something that we need to understand is that it will take some time to get used to, and we can't give you all the volume and clarity to start off with. We need to do it very slowly. Yeah.
Do you pick the brand of the device or the audiologist?
The question was, does the client pick the brand of the device? Similar to, do you go into the Hyundai dealership or the Mercedes dealership or the Toyota dealership? Or do you let your audiologist pick? There's two types of hearing clinics. You've got the larger clinics. A lot of them are owned by the manufacturers. So one of the issues that we have is that if you go into a manufacturer-owned clinic, a lot of them want to sell their own products. Sometimes the products are really good. There are batches which I see that they're both price competitive as well as good devices, but it depends. I'm working at an independent clinic, so we're not owned by any of the manufacturers. I've got about 7 or 8 hearing aids on my desk at home at the moment. So every few months I'm changing them. So I want to make sure that what we're fitting is the latest, the best, and also the best for your hearing loss as well. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Can you tell us what is the price range of the hearing aids, and also is there a subsidy for it?
Yes. Hearing aids can range from essentially free. So pensioners get about $1,000 for hearing aids. $1,000 gets you something quite basic. And on the other end, with the premium service and everything included, you can spend $12,000 on the other end. The main difference between something basic and something better is the clarity. Like a good hi-fi system, does it sound like music coming out of your phone? Or does it sound like a nice boombox? And like inside the sanctuary, does it sound crisp and clear, or is it distorted? That's number one thing. The second thing is the comfort. So the better the hearing aids are, if you're in, let's say, a restaurant or got the grandkids over, if there's lots of noise, they're screaming, is it able to give us good volume without making things uncomfortable? The third thing is, if you go into a restaurant with background noise, is the hearing aid able to make things louder? So speech and background noise, everything's louder? Or is just the speech louder and the background noise softer? The better the hearing aid, the better the clarity is. In terms of hearing aids, you've got places like Specsavers and Costco, which provide quite affordable hearing aids at quite good prices. They've got quite good technology at the same time. One of the challenges with that is that they have a limited range, so they don't sell everything. But if you're looking for something a bit more budget, something good value for money, they do provide good options. The important thing that you have to look at is also the audiologist that you're seeing. So regardless of whether we get something $1,000 or $12,000, the most important is that the person you're seeing knows how to tune and configure them. Similar to like getting a hip replaced or a knee replaced, You can have the same titanium, but you want to make sure the person who's installing it knows what they're doing. Yeah, that's for sure.
It can be all these things adjust to the different, like sometimes can be restaurant, sometimes can be at home quiet. That means they have to have a different pairs, or they just need one pair to do the lots.
The question was, do we need one pair of hearing aids which is able to manage
Everything.
quiet and noise, or can one pair, or do we need multiple pairs? The more basic hearing aids, what you have to do is when you're in a noisy place, you can flick a button and then it'll help to cut down the background noise. The better it is, the more automatic it is. You don't have to touch any buttons. If the hearing aid hears lots of noise, it automatically turns the noise off.
So smart.
Yeah. And yeah, so the better it is, the less you have to fiddle, because we want to put it on like glasses. Just want to, in the morning you just put it on, at night you just take it off. You don't want to play around with it most of the time. Yeah.
It's very hard.
Most hearing aids are now connected to your phone, so when you have WhatsApp calls or videos from family, you can hear it inside your hearing aids, which is very helpful. And if you're in a noisy place, most of the new hearing aids connect to your phone, so you're able to make them louder and softer and change those programs as well.
Also can do selective hearing, right?
Yeah. There's a mute button at the bottom that you can turn them off. Yes, sir.
What is the technology inside the hearing aid that can cause you to hear? Is there some kind of a microphone inside there?
Yes. So the question was, how does a hearing aid work? What are the different parts and how does it make things louder? So this is a good picture. So the hearing aid, you've got some microphones on the body itself. So at the back of the hearing aid, there are some microphones here. Those microphones pick up the sound. So if you have two hearing aids, they pick up the sound from both sides. They can figure out what speech and background noise. That sound is processed in the body of the hearing aid. So to make it clearer, to take out the background noise, and once that's all cleared up, that's sent down into the speaker. So you got a microphone, and you got a speaker. It's just much smaller. One of the reasons why it's so expensive is they made it so small for such high technology that it is quite expensive. Yeah. In terms of costs, if you have private health insurance, Medibank, Bupa, HCF, Australian Unity, you may get another $1,000 off hearing aids, depending on what options there are. Yeah.
One more question. No, if the nerve, let's say that got like damaged, right? When you wear this hearing aid, is that improved for long term that have to wear, or we just have to go back to the radiologist and check whether it can be improved the nerve back again, or if let's say early detection?
Yeah. The question was, if there is a nerve problem, we start to wear hearing aids, do we need to wear the hearing aids for the rest of our life? Unfortunately, they're currently doing more research on how to recover the nerve problem. But I don't think it's gonna come out until maybe 10 or 20 years, maybe a bit longer. Similar to eyesight, once the eyesight goes, it's very hard to recover. There's probably exercises and things you can do to help. But to preserve the nerve, to make sure it's not getting worse, we want to make sure we're wearing them. Yeah.
I've got a similar question regarding nerve deafness. So you are saying that if there is nerve deafness, there's not much point having to wear a hearing aid. So for instance, like myself, I had nerve deafness since childhood.
Yes.
So it's really too late, isn't it, to do anything about it?
So the question is, if you have nerve deafness, is there anything that can be done? What we have to do is we have to test the hearing, see if we can make it louder. Is the brain still able to process those sounds? And if it is able to process those sounds, is it able to do it fully to 100%, to 90%, to 80%, what the level is, and see where we want to start in terms of volume to make things clearer, and then slowly make things louder and clearer over time.
So are you saying regardless of the time factor, it's still worth having your ear tested in terms of like I mentioned,
Yes.
I'm
Since childhood.
deaf since I was a child.
Yes.
Is it too late now to do something about it?
So the question is, if we have a hearing loss since childhood, is it, and nothing's been done since then, is it too late now? It depends on the level of the hearing. Regardless, we want to get it checked so that we can see where it is, because if we leave it any longer, then it can get slightly worse.
I was told it's dead.
It's dead, yeah.
Yeah.
1 year, both years?
Huh?
Both years?
No, just one.
Just 1 year, yeah. If you've had a deafness in 1 ear for a long time, we may not be able to do anything with that ear. We may just have to help the other ear out. Or something we can do is we can put a microphone on this side, so that if people are talking on that bad ear, you can hear it on the other side for the clarity as well.
Is that audiologist visit a one-time visit? Because you mentioned about progressive increase in more clarity.
Yes.
Do you visit them every